You are listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report, episode 192.5. Grant Shouse reacts to IU's 78-62 win at Washington on Saturday. We will typically do these segments immediately after the game or the following morning, but Grant was calling the girls basketball state championships, so we didn't get a chance to do it till Sunday night. But here is Grant breaking down IU's big win on Saturday in Seattle.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengels.
Welcome back to the Central Indiana Sports Report. Grant Shouse, our IU guy, reacting to Saturday's 78-62 impressive win. Grant, start to finish, the Hoosiers dominated this game, particularly on the defensive end. We may have found something on the defensive end in particular. Washington shot 36.2% and committed 13 turnovers. IU had 6 steals, led by 3 from Anthony Leal, who was particularly good on the defensive end, especially the backcourt. The backcourt in particular, I thought, played really well defensively. Grant, your reaction to the Hoosiers' 78-62 win over Washington?
Yeah, Malik Renew was big in that one. 22 points, 6 rebounds after missing the game against Penn State, which I think was the reason Indiana may not have blown Penn State out, only won by 5. But to get him back in the lineup was key for them. And the reason he did not play Wednesday is prior to the game, he had an allergic reaction to something, and he had to go to the hospital. And that was like a lot. He was going to play in the game. So to get him back out on the West Coast on this 2-game road trip with Washington and Oregon, he's going to be the reason Indiana is going to have success here in these final 2 games of the regular season. Indiana came out last night in a brand new look, scripted Indiana across the chest in all
nice.
black.
It looked nice.
It did look nice on TV.
Traditionalists won't like it, but it looked nice.
And believe it or not, that was one of the very few things I think I've ever seen in my life on IU Twitter coming together and agreeing on something.
Oh, they all liked it.
I know. They all liked
really?
it.
Is that right?
I was a little surprised.
Good.
And, people don't like change. They like the simplicities about it, like the Super Bowl with the new scoreboard, the score bug. People didn't like that. I didn't mind it. But people
when
didn't
you
like
look that
it.
nice, people overlook it.
Yeah, exactly. And they look clean. And did it have something to do with the way they played? Maybe it did. I don't know. Maybe they should wear them every game.
Probably not, but they did look good.
Maybe they should wear them every game.
So the Hoosiers, really something that lately has been a positive, outscored the Washington bench 35-8. That was a big deal, especially as you talked about with Renew coming off the bench, but also Miles Rice 2 for 3 from the 3-point line, 4 for 8 from the field, finished with 10 points. He also had 5 rebounds. Like the way he's playing.
It seems to be the consensus thing that a lot of teams, you want to play your best basketball towards the end of the year, and maybe that's what Indiana's doing, and maybe they're finding their lineup. They're finding what works for them over this 3-game stretch here, going back to last Sunday against Purdue. It's key to win games. I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do on Tuesday, and in my opinion, a win on Tuesday and you're in the tournament.
Absolutely.
And
I
don't win on Tuesday. I still think you're in good shape.
It hurts a little.
Got to beat Ohio State.
It hurts a little if they lose to Oregon, but not as much as if they would have lost to Washington.
Right.
And so that was the must-win of the trip.
Yeah, and we said on Friday night that you can, I think, be forgiven if you beat Washington and lose to Oregon on your bubble resume. Indiana did have some help on the bubble yesterday with some teams losing. I said the other day they were in position to be in position. Now they are in position. So we'll see on Tuesday. But hopefully they can get a good win.
Tuesday probably gets you in for sure. I mean, especially, and they say maybe they don't take into account how you're playing of late, but you have to at least a little bit take that into consideration when you're looking at the way things are unfolding across the country.
For sure.
And right now, Indiana has built 4 of the last 5, a win at Michigan State, a win over Purdue, must wins over Penn State and Washington. If they're not in, you have to really like where they stand.
Yeah, and I know Penn State and Washington are bottom of the barrel programs in the conference this year, and I think Washington's probably going to miss the Big Ten tournament. Penn State maybe could be that last team in. We'll see. The bottom three, of course. We said it. If you don't know, the bottom three in the Big Ten don't qualify for the Big Ten tournament. They take the first 15 teams. We'll see where they stand, but I like where Indiana's at right now. I think they've officially avoided not having to play on the first day of the Big Ten tournament, which would be the first day is the 10 through the 15 seed. That'll play Wednesday of the Big Ten tournament. But I think where Indiana's at, I think they could be in position to maybe play that first game Thursday afternoon at 12 o'clock. And certainly if they win the next two, they're not going to play on that first day. But you could see them moving up on the seed line for the tournament, maybe to the 8 seed or the 7 seed.
They beat Oregon for sure.
Yeah.
Then you're talking about a team that's one game ahead of them in the standings. Illinois won't be impossible to catch because Illinois still has to play Purdue.
Right. That'd be a good game.
Yeah, and so it looks like if they make that kind of charge, they obviously deserve to be in. I think if you're above 500 in the Big Ten, you're definitely in.
Yeah, no question. In the Big Ten, we've said it, on any given night can beat anyone.
Yeah, there aren't any teams this year. There have been through the years, obviously, teams that if you were decent, you were going to roll through. There's not a single one. Maybe Washington, we found out last night, is that one, although Zoom Diallo is legit, and that kid's going to be a good one.
And great Osipor, what was not so great last night.
He was not so great last night.
Yeah.
Again, let's talk a little bit more about the defense. I mean, if the defense plays the way that, and again, not a good offensive team, not a good defensive team either, Washington. But if they play that way and really cause havoc, this is a team that's dangerous, IU.
Of course. And it's starting to kind of remind me of Mike Woodson's first season at Indiana, where they had a stretch. They did not play well with Trace Jackson Davis and some of those other guys in Woodson's first year. And then this time of year, they got hot. They got in the Big Ten tournament. They won 2 games in the tournament. They took out the number 1 seed. That for sure got them into the tournament. They beat Illinois. That was so big. They had the comeback win against Michigan. If you remember that, that was at Gainbridge. That was the last time the Big Ten tournament was at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indy. Beat Michigan, beat Illinois, lost on a heartbreaker to Iowa. And that alone was enough to get them in the first 4. They beat Wyoming at Dayton and, of course, lost to St. Mary's in the first round of the tournament. But the madness, March Madness has already begun for Indiana. Every game is pretty much a tournament game, if you really think about it, because it's going to show in these next 2 with Oregon and Ohio State if you're going to move further up the line, on the bubble line, and where you're going to be seated in the conference tournament.
All right, Grant, you and I are going to be talking about the potential new coaching hire. We're going to do that sometime early this week.
Okay.
Our IU Weekly with Grant Shouse. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Here's one thing I want to say before we go.
What's that?
In 1999 was the first ever Big Ten tournament. Purdue and IU played. Purdue beat them. They have not played each other since in the Big Ten tournament. We need that to happen.
We do. I mean, think about how great it would be for the sport. It seems like Duke and North Carolina have played each other.
It happens all the time.
They played each other multiple times. They played each other in the Final Four a few years ago.
That's right.
That's just so great for the sport to get the rivals together when, it means something. Something means something at that point. And
Purdue did beat IU in an Elite Eight once, just so you know.
Yeah, but Indiana beat Purdue in the NIT when the NIT meant something. I think Mike Woodson was on that team when that happened, and I know that was special. The NIT, of course, is the, guys that didn't make it. But
1980 was the last time Purdue made the Final Four before last year, and the greatest run of all time in my eyes, beating in the Sweet 16 Kentucky and then the Elite Eight Indiana if you're a Purdue fan, it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, those are literally.
Yeah. I mean, maybe Illinois or Michigan State would be better than, but that's two pretty darn good ones.
I don't know.
That's
It's like
two pretty
as an
darn good
IU
ones.
fan, I would want to take out Purdue and Kentucky. No question about
Absolutely.
it.
I'm not sure that Purdue fans are as passionate about Kentucky.
Probably not.
But
Indiana hates Kentucky.
But I am. I'm
You hate
passionate about
Kentucky?
hating Kentucky.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I'm right there with you.
Even
man.
in the years where I didn't like IU very much because of Bob Knight, the one time a year at least that I would be actively cheering for IU was against Kentucky and
Yeah.
Joe B. Hall and that horrible, despicable program.
Somebody, a friend of mine who's a Kentucky fan told me that Bob Knight threw Joe B. Hall's glasses across the floor one time. And it's like, I wouldn't say I'm a historian on Coach Knight, but I've done a lot of research and have learned a lot of things about him that that just can't be true. If it was, it wouldn't shock me, of course. But
He's done worse than that, I'll tell you that.
Throwing Joe B. Hall's glasses is
child's
nothing.
play, man.
It's like me getting in the car and driving.
He assaulted a police officer in Puerto Rico. That's nothing.
Oh, he can't get into it. Another time. Another time. We'll leave that ball closed for now.
I love hating Bob Knight. I will say this. IU could use a coach more like him,
Of course.
than what they've had lately.
I can't wait to talk about it more, and I know we will. And when they make that hire, which is going to be sooner than later, it's coming up because you're going to get it here within the next month. But by the end of March, Indiana will have a new head coach.
Absolutely, and I think you got to open your wallet for Jay Wright or Tony Bennett. I understand the other guys could be good too. But those two guys are difference makers, and IU deserves a difference maker.
For sure, Greg.
Thank you so much to Grant for joining the Central Indiana Sports Report once again. You better get used to him. Love having him on the Central Indiana Sports Report. Also, thank you for listening. Please go subscribe at our YouTube channel. Even if you're already subscribed at SoundCloud, Spotify, Amazon, or Apple, please go over to our YouTube page, search Central Indiana Sports Report. We are really easy to find. The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.